Back in 2018, CD Projekt Red released a standalone game as a campaign for Gwent known as Thronebreaker: The Witcher Tales. In this game, you play as Queen Maeve, and you control her army, and you basically have to stop a Nilfgaardian invasion. It's a very interesting bit of lore in the Witcher series, and it's something that the games don't really go into much detail about, and the TV show hasn't gone near at all yet. So getting something like this as like a digital version of lore is really interesting for the game, but not only that, it includes the Gwent mechanic in the combat system as well as in puzzles, and genuinely Thronebreaker is probably one of the better campaigns I've seen for a card game. And as much as I've loved the campaigns of Elder Scrolls Legends and the really interesting stories they tell, Thronebreaker manages to throw in card games with a kind of tactical RPG at the same time, and this mix together is what makes it an outstanding standalone game, and makes me hope that they do make a sequel sometime. So in this video, I'll be going over what Thronebreaker was, and how outstanding it was as a game, or is as a game, because it's still out there, and why I think it was really underrated. And I think the best way to start this video off is talking about the actual card game itself, Gwent, and how it links into this game. So, as mentioned earlier, all the combats in the game, and even some of the puzzles, take place on a Gwent board, and that means that you kind of get to learn how to play the game Gwent, even if the rules are fairly different in this one compared to actual Gwent the Witcher card game, but they have like the similar kind of, they've got the same keywords, just cards have different abilities, and in this one it's much easier to get higher numbers. In fact, you can get some ridiculously high numbers on the board if you have the right deck, and you know, if you get 4,000 points like this in Thronebreaker, you're probably lucky to get over 100 in Gwent. But some of the bots definitely vary in kind of quality and deck plans, as some have these great strategies that used to beat you, while others very much rely on just having cards which seem a bit unfair, allowing them to draw several times over and gain insane buffs. But the fact is that throughout this campaign that you're slowly building up your deck through kind of choices you make. So for instance, you can do side quests where you'll be given resources which you can then use to buy different cards, or even if you do a certain side quest or find puzzle pieces throughout the maps that the game takes place on, you can find extra cards and put them in your deck. And as it kind of limits the number of, I think it's like artifact cards it gives you, you can kind of really make this deck your own and have your own little strategy. Now, the one thing which I would say this game does unfortunately lack is that you pretty much are given a Northern Realms deck with a couple of cards from different factions to throw in. You can't really have a massive mess about. It's pretty much just Northern Realms with a few cards which in theory would fit into Syndicate, but Syndicate wasn't actually a thing when this came out. A few Nilfgaard cards, a few Skellige cards, etc, etc, depending on the choices you make. And while we're talking about choices, you can also lose certain cards depending on the choices in certain quests and side quests. For instance, one of the quests, if you decide to kind of assist someone, your party will approve of it, but one of your party members who's got a different opinion may get mad and think, no, this isn't right for me, I'm leaving. And just having these kind of choices and consequences that you kind of have to live with is really nice to have, in the sake of a true RPG, which has like a tactical RPG, that is. And in fact, on my first ever playthrough of this game, I didn't get all of the equivalent gold cards as followers, because there was one of them who was in a barrel at the top of a hill, and I just decided to kick it off the cliff. I didn't bother listening to the interaction properly, I just booted the barrel off the cliff, not knowing that there was actually a potential kind of advisor slash follower slash companion in that barrel at the time. And as you may be able to tell by me mentioning that there's a weird follower in a barrel, the game does have its moments of humour, but it does have a very gritty and serious story to tell at the same time, which is just, you know, really nice to kind of watch along and listen to. And as it's a game of choices, you can expect your endings will have slight differences, which is obviously something that adds to replayability. And again, about the characters, there's definitely a lot of really interesting characters that you get to meet in this game. In fact, I'd say one of my favourites has to be Gascon, who's one of those kind of Robin Hood-esque characters he starts off as a bandit, but as you play the game, you kind of get to see a different side of him, and it's really nice having a character like that who can be humorous as well as having a much darker side, and as well as that having another comical side to him, and having all those sides to him. There's also Reynard, who you start with, who's one of your advisors, and a soldier who works for you. And there's so many more along the way that you get to meet. And the best thing is when you're in your army camp, you can go and talk to them and learn a bit about them. And these conversations with them, if you get them to a certain point in the game, can actually modify their cards. So either talking to them or doing stuff which they like will make their cards better later on in the game and make them better to be used for you. Which is obviously something which is really fun to have in a single player card game, but would be busted in a multiplayer one, which is really nice. Another great thing about these cards is that in certain parts, if your game is linked to your GOG account, which I think can only just be done on GOG Galaxy, you'll start unlocking those cards in Gwent the Witcher card game that you can mess about with later on, which is just really great because it like gives people who just like to play the multiplayer one incentive to play this, as well as people who are trying to get into that card game to play this, learn how to play the game, have a few more cards when they do go onto it, and it all just works really well together, I think. As I mentioned, this game is, very much a tactical RPG and all about storytelling and decision making. And the things that kind of help you kind of see what your choices are doing and seeing how they're very much affecting your army are like the morale meter, you have your own kind of money, you've got resources, and you've just got the number of people in your army as well. And those kind of 4 factors throughout the game will change depending on what you've done. If you help people, they might pay you, or you can conscript people to work for you. And as you can see on this current screen, once we get out of this cutscene, that you can see what each of those kind of symbols is recognised by. And this also shows you kind of what the map looks like. And there's about 5 maps, I believe, which you go to, which are all different places with their own quests and side quests. So yeah, on the top left corner, you can see the morale meter. And if that's green, it means your troops are happy and they'll have a buff in the next battle you do. And if they're red, then it means they'll have a debuff in the next battle. And your kind of troops' morale is affected by what you do and how you react with the world. Obviously, money's very much related to side quests, and the kind of resources is usually due to, like, if you can find stuff around the map or do manual labour. There's also stuff to do with the army numbers, which is in the very top right corner, and currently it's 40 at the start of the game. And depending on if you find troops to conscript through either your actions or whatnot, you can kind of have them do stuff for you as well, and spend those troops to get certain cards for your deck. If you haven't given Thronebreaker a go and you just love the Witcher lore and you're always into card games, I would of course recommend this game as much as possible. Not just because I'm a Gwent partner, but also because of how really enjoyable it is, and it's on so many different consoles. In fact, I first played this on my Switch, which was just really good fun to do, because I could just instead of going to sleep, I could just go into portable mode, carry it up into my room and just start playing that for a few hours. Definitely messed with my sleep schedule a little bit, but then again, I was never had the best of sleep schedules. And I really hope that CD Projekt Red do consider making another one of these kind of campaigns alongside Gwent, because not only would this be a great way to bring in more cards to Gwent, but it would also allow them to use so many more of these expansions that they've made over the years, and then put, them into another, let's just say it's called Thronebreaker 2, The Witcher Tales, because I don't know what it would be called or what it would be about. But the fact is, now that they've got Syndicate, it means they could literally do an entire game, around Novigrad, and just have the gangs of Syndicate, and then you could have monsters underneath the city, you could have Nilfgaard invading, you could have Skelegons raiding the seas, you've got Northern Realms as the guards themselves, and I just think it'd be a really fun thing to play. But that's all I've already got to speak about on this matter, I guess. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I hope you guys, if you have played Thronebreaker, let me know what you thought of it in the comments. If you haven't played it, tell me, does this video make you want to play it? Does it make you just want to stick with Gwent? Do you not play Gwent at all? You just clicked on it because you thought this video could be an interesting watch? I don't know, guys. It's just all about, what do you guys want to see in the future from, Gwent itself? Do you want to see more expansions? Do you want to see just more journeys? Do you think that another campaign like this could be really fun, or maybe something a bit toned down and just being a small story which has a few events in the game? Is that something that you'd rather prefer? Let me know in the comments. But anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next video.